Talk us through your earliest memories of the sport.
I was playing like men's cricket at the age of like 12, which was quite scary actually, like looking back at it. Even up until now, even not being labeled as the captain, I still try and think of the game differently. And like I obviously alluded to earlier, was the way I kind of grew up thinking about cricket really was a little bit different. And I think from a young age, captaincy was something that I really enjoyed doing.
You mentioned Graham Smith. What was he like as a leader?
Always come put an arm around you and actually not just talk about cricket, just have really good banter away from like cricketing stuff and actually trying to make you feel more comfortable.
Like slower balls, Yorkers, it's easier said than done.
Two things come to mind. I think it's clarity. So just be clear about what you want to do, and then obviously practice in terms of like repetitions.
What work are you doing in the gym?
A lot of the sort of like, I wouldn't say like heavy lifting, but like heavy loads and stuff happens in the off season and like leading into the pre-season. So it's kind of like a lot of physical stuff and a little bit of cricket in the off season. But as you get closer to the season, it kind of then overtakes where it's more cricket and less physical stuff. So the physical stuff becomes more top-up sessions.
Yeah, 2017, you mentioned the test match against Bangladesh. It's been your last outing for South Africa currently. You went and took the Kolpak deal, came over to the UK to play for Worcester.
I didn't say like I was done with international cricket, because it was the year before the World Cup, and I was like, you know what, I can probably be in the World Cup squad in 2019. But I kind of just realized, like, you know what, my son's going to be born. I'll have 6 months in the UK. I'll have 6 months back to South Africa. I'll be able to spend time with family. And I think, post-cricket, that's important.
Cricket Life Stories with me, Neel Khagram. Today we're joined by Wayne Parnell. How's things going up in Northants, where you're based at the moment?
Yeah, not too bad. It's quite wet outside and dark. So it's typical British summer weather, I guess. But everything's going all right. Thanks for having me.
Good to hear. So let's take all the way back with yourself. You're born in Port Elizabeth, Cape Town, South Africa. Talk us through your earliest memories of the sport, how you got into it.
Yeah, so I think obviously like most kids, I guess, playing with your family. So with my dad and my older brother, and also just playing in the street really, with the kids in the neighborhood. And then from there, obviously like playing, junior school, primary school cricket. I actually played for a club as well when I was quite young. So I think my under 13 provincial coach was coaching at a team. So I was playing like men's cricket at the age of like 12, which was quite scary actually, like looking back at it. And then from there, just kind of go through the age groups. I was lucky enough to get a cricket scholarship to Grey High School in Port Elizabeth. I think that's kind of where everything kind of took off. And then obviously into the under 19 setup with South Africa, and then for my local franchise team, the Warriors. And then I got picked for South Africa at the tender age of 19 back in 2009, which feels, it's obviously long ago, but it feels like it happened the other day.
Yes. I want to pick up on the point you made about playing as a 12, 13-year-old in an adult team. Do you think that's the unique nature of cricket and almost matures you even as a young man at that stage, as a young kid at that stage?
I think it can be, well, it can be mostly good if you have the right people around you. So like I said, so my coach, obviously, knowing I was only 12, I think I batted like number 6, and I bowled maybe like, because I was only little, so I bowled like 2 or 3 overs really. But I think it was more about just trying to get me around like older people. And I think that's kind of always been, obviously now it's open, but like up until under 19s, like I was always playing with older kids, playing against older kids. And I think that definitely helped me with my development, because when you 12 or 13 and you're playing against guys who are a lot older, you have to kind of do things to try and kind of catch up to them. And I think that's probably where I became a lot more like street smart than like guys my own age. So when I went into high school at Grey High School, it was obviously a lot more formal with having games every weekend and stuff like that. And I think I was kind of ahead in terms of like being street smart of like guys. Maybe there were other guys who were more talented than me, but I think in terms of how I thought about the game, I've certainly felt like I was a lot better than kids my own age.
And then growing up through the ranks, was your strongest suit with the bat, the ball, or were you just a general all-rounder at that age?
So actually, up until I reckon under 15, I was like a proper all-rounder in terms of in my under 13 team, I used to open the bowl seam, and then I used to bowl left arm spin as well, and then I used to keep, and I used to open the batting. So I literally did everything, and then obviously as you kind of not become more professional, but going into the setup I did in high school, I had to kind of be more right. This is what I'm going to do. So I used to open the bowling and then bat 4-5. And that's actually kind of where I batted and bowled up until I started playing professionally. And I think it was in 2007, I think at the Warriors and at Eastern Province in the men's team, because they had such a strong team. I think I ended up batting at like number 8 or like number 9. So like for a few years, I kind of lost that, just batting out in like game situations. And then you kind of get stuck in that level of like, oh no, you're number 7, 8 batter, and I think that's kind of where I've stuck mostly. But certainly in the early parts of my career, I used to be up the order.
Was it always an ambition of yours to be a professional cricketer? And then when you made your debut for Easterns and the reality here, how are you feeling?
No, I think the first time I kind of realized like what I was doing was when I made my T20 debut for the Warriors, when I came back in 2008 from the Under-19 World Cup. It was at the end of the season, so it could have been like March, April of 2008. And I was standing at St. George's Park in my first game. In that season, the Zimbabwean team was playing in our domestic competition. So I was standing at the back of my mark for the Warriors. I think I was bowling to like Hamilton Mazakadze, guys who like played international cricket. And I think I was like 18 or 19 or whatever it was. And that's kind of when I realized, I looked down, I was wearing all the like colored clothing. And there was like people in the stand and stuff like shouting my name. And if you've ever been to St. George's Park or you've heard stories about St. George's Park, obviously the band is quite a sort of like draw card. And I think that's kind of when I realized it, because people were shouting my name, the band was playing, and I was standing there. I was like, right, this is actually happening. And I think that's kind of the first memory of me being a professional cricketer, really.
Yeah, you played in the Under-19 World Cup, played in 2, am I correct in saying, 2006 and 2008. You skippered the side in 2008. Who else came through the ranks with you in that team? How was that as an experience as a young pro?
So if I go back to 2006, Dean Alger was my captain there. Also my current teammate now at Northants, Richard Levy, he was in that team. Craig Kisviter played in that team. I'm trying to think of the guys who went on to kind of play, pro for a good couple of seasons, or even went on to play international cricket. We had a few guys obviously played first class cricket back home, but then fast forward to 2008. So that team, it was myself, Peter Malan, who's always played a couple of test matches for South Africa. I hate mentioning people's names now because I'm definitely going to forget someone. Oh, Reza Hendricks was there as well. He's obviously played for South Africa. John Smarts. I'm actually kind of trying to go through the batting order, and then obviously like most of the guys from that team is either still playing first class cricket now, or played after playing in the Under-19 World Cup. And I think even the guys that we played against in both the 2006 and 2008 World Cup from other countries, a lot of like really good names that I came up against in that competition, which is a really good stepping stone for guys trying to make it pro in the game.
Did you enjoy the responsibility of captaining? Because obviously you've got a huge role with the ball as well, and also you hit some useful runs with the bat as well.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, even up until now, even not being labeled as the captain, I still try and think of the game differently. And like I obviously alluded to earlier, was the way I kind of grew up thinking about cricket really was a little bit different. And I think from a young age, captaincy was something that I really enjoyed doing. Um, and hopefully, before I retire, I might captain. Even if it's a couple of games here and there. I think my professional record is still 100%. I think I captained one game for the Warriors in a T20 competition. We ended up winning it. So my captaincy rate is 100%.
And then from there, you got the recognition, South Africa recognition in the squad initially, and then you made your T20 debut in Brisbane against Australia. The moment when you got the call, how are you feeling?
Yeah, so I think you kind of have to go back. I think a month before I actually ended up making a debut. I was still living in Port Elizabeth back then, and I think it was a Sunday morning. So I was driving home from the gym, and I see this call. I think it's a +4 number, which is the Australian dialing code. I think like it's weird. It's like early in the morning, so I pick up the phone, and it's Mike Proctor, who was the convener of selectors for Proteas back then, and he's like, you've been selected for the limited overs squads, both 50 overs and T20, to play against Australia. You'll be coming out here, obviously, in the new year. So I kind of like pulled over my car and like just sat there for about 10-15 minutes, like not registering like what's just happened. And yeah, a couple of weeks later, I was on a flight with the guys playing white ball cricket, and there was Herschel Gibbs, Johan Botha, Albie Morkel, like guys who I admired. Obviously growing up and like watching them dominate cricket around the world, and being on the same flight as them, like just being able to like chat to them really about cricket and stuff, and then getting over to Australia. So we arrived for the last test match, the famous one where Graham Smith went to go bat with the broken hand. I think if you kind of see the like replay of that, there's like a young Wayne Parnell on the balcony. They're standing there like watching him walk out, and I think that's just been like I think that's where it kind of all started, where you realize like, right, this is proper stuff here. Because you have like all these great names, certainly South African and in world cricket legends, being part of that.
You mentioned Graham Smith. What was he like as a leader?
Yeah, just great. I think one thing that's kind of, I mean, every captain that I've played under is completely different, and I think that's kind of the nice thing as well with like leadership, is that everyone's style is different. But like with Graham, because he's a big guy, right? So he's like very tall, like solidly built guy. So he's kind of intimidating physically, like when you look at him. But like as a youngster, he was really good because he not just talk to you about cricket stuff. He'd really try and find out about like your family or how you're doing. Because I think he understood as well, because obviously he started when he was really young as well. So maybe he kind of felt like he didn't have the same, or maybe he had the same as well, and he thought like that really helped him kind of fit in. So I think he was really good from that perspective, where you would always come put an arm around you and actually not just talk about cricket, just have really good banter away from like cricketing stuff, and actually trying to make you feel more comfortable. Because I think he also understood that if people were comfortable as individuals, I think the like cricket part takes care of itself, I guess.
And then 2009, he came over to England to play county cricket for Kent. How was that? Was that the first time playing cricket in England for yourself? And how did you find the different conditions, seam and swinging conditions in England?
Yeah, so I was supposed to play club cricket actually. I think I had a club lined up in the Lancashire League. I think it was Morecambe Cricket Club. So a couple of guys that I played with at the Warriors had pro'd there before. So I kind of lined that up, and I think it either got signed off or was close to being signed off. And I think just before me coming over, I then made my debut for South Africa in the white ball stuff, and then I played Test cricket as well. So then I could then qualify to play county cricket, and then I had the offer from Kent And I think it was just I was fortunate enough because I came with my school team in 2007. So we toured here, and I played against Eton, and I think it could have been, is it Oracle School, I think, and Wellingborough, and a couple of good school, Reading. And I actually played against Chris Jordan when he was at school. Oh no, I think he was at Dulwich College. So then coming to play county cricket, so I kind of knew a little bit, but now you're not playing schoolboy cricket, you're playing professional cricket. But again, the setup at Kent at that particular time was really good, and I think it was perfect for me I think I could have either just turned 19 to come and play there, because you had, so Rob Key was captaining, captain of the club. So I had Rob Key, Martin van Jaarsveld, Justin Kemp, Robbie Joseph, Martin Saggers, Joe Denley. So a lot of very experienced guys, and guys who played international cricket. And I think they were really good. I think Geraint Jones was there as well. So I had all these experienced guys who obviously watched growing up, and to play with them. I think they were just really good in guiding me as to how you kind of play in the UK. And it was a really successful stint actually with them. And it's obviously a county that I, even to this day, I still follow them, because I think that's the type of person I am. Wherever I go, I try and make friends, and try and leave a positive mark wherever I've gone and played county cricket there.
And then 2009 later, you were part of the World T20 team for South Africa. How was that as an experience, playing your first major tournament for the country?
So it was good. Obviously, I did really well personally. I think also it was my first kind of international ICC tournament.
Reading about some stats, 9 wickets at an economy of less than 6. Impressive.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a thing though. Like I think even back then as well, I was always a guy like, I just want to win. So whether I do well or not, if we're winning, great. So even when we lost against Pakistan at Trent Bridge, like even though I had a really good tournament, I still felt very sad because we lost as a team. And I think that's how I've always played my cricket up until this day. It's always been about, what can I do to win? Or like, I'm happy to not contribute at all as long as we win. I think a couple of weeks ago we had a game at Yorkshire where I got 10 for, which is great for me, but we ended up losing the game by 1 run. So that's what I'm saying. So that's kind of how I've always played the game. But that was a great experience. I mean, first ICC tournament that I've been part of, and it was really well run as well. It's obviously gotten better, every single edition.
And then, if you can give some tips and advice for youngsters perhaps watching this, in terms of variations when you're approaching short form cricket, how do you approach things from, when you're talking about slower balls, Yorkers? It's easier said than done, but how do you go about things from your preparation stage during training phase right through to game day and executing on the big stage? Any tips and advice you can give youngsters?
So I think the first thing that comes to mind, well, actually 2 things come to mind. I think it's clarity. So just be clear about what you want to do, and then obviously practice in terms of like repetitions. You have to practice those skills, because it's not, I wouldn't say that it's not easy, because it obviously comes more naturally to certain players more so than others, but it's something you have to practice. The same as batters trying to develop a new shot, you have to keep practicing it. So with that, you obviously need to have a game plan as well. But I think having clarity as to like what, and knowing strengths and weaknesses. So if my strength is a certain ball, I need to know that like if I go to that ball, I'm going to execute it at a really high percentage. And this ball over here is probably at a much lower percentage. So don't neglect your strength, because your strength has to be like really good. And then you can work on your weakness and get it better. Because I've seen a lot of guys, oh no, this is my strength, right? So I'm okay with this. They work on this weakness a lot, and then the strength kind of goes down there, and then your weakness. So then you have 2 average skills. So you like, if you watch the best guys in the world, they're very simple actually, and they don't have all these different variations where people really think about. I mean, like if I look at Dwayne Bravo, who's probably been one of the best T20 players for a very long time. Simple. He can bowl a good Yorker, he can bowl a good bumper, and he's got a good slower ball, and he bowls decent length as well. So if you think about cricket, the most simple things are the most effective things. And even your like batters as well. Like you look at, there are some guys who are a bit different, and I mean those will be like maybe 4 or 5 guys. But if you look at the really good players, they just do good things often, and kind of more basic cricket shots, you know what I mean? And it's just about them being clear. And I reckon if you speak to all of those players, and from players that I've spoken to around the leagues and stuff, they kind of it kind of all comes back to having a game plan and just being clear.
When you're actually training in the nets, do you try and put something on it, as in just try and replicate that pressure situation?
So when I was younger, you obviously have like little games in the nets and stuff. So that was quite big, like when I was a lot younger. But as I kind of get a bit older now, I kind of try and figure out what I need to do. So I'm practicing more along the lines of where I would bowl in the game. So say I'll have to bowl in the first 6 overs, say in like T20 cricket, if I'm bowling in the first 6 overs, right? This is what I need to do when I'm bowling to a player that kind of plays like this. Then, you know, come back again, either maybe bowling the middle overs or at the death, right? This is what I'm going to do. These are my strengths. These are my fields I'm going to have. And then tell the batter, right? These are my fields. You know, I don't really so much now like place an emphasis on like, right, okay, I'm going to bowl 12 balls at you. Got X number of runs, because in a net it's difficult, because guys hit, it sounds nice, but it might be out caught, or you know they hit in a certain spot. You think like, oh no, that's straight to a fielder, but it might beat the fielder. So yeah, that to a certain extent, but I think it's more about like me focusing on what I'm gonna do during games and stuff. And I think preparing that way, again, becoming more specific and being clear as to how I want to go about training as well.
And then January 2010, the Test debut against England at the Wanderers. Who presented you with your cap? The words that were said, and when you walked out on the field wearing the cap.
Yeah, so I think myself and Ryan McLaren made our debuts on the same in that same Test match, and I think it was Sean Pollock actually that gave us the caps. It was such a long time ago. I don't even remember what he said really. I think it was just nice to obviously be there playing Test cricket against England. I think we ended up winning that Test match. I got a couple of wickets. So I think it was just a nice experience, and I think like I wouldn't say an easy Test match to kind of get into, but like just a nice one where, you know, I think it was like Steyn, Morkel, McLaren, myself. So you had like, you know, and even batting as well, proper guys batting as well. So you know, just a nice memory, obviously, and I think that's something that will kind of stick with me for the rest of my life.
And on the back of that, you were awarded an IPL contract for Delhi, but you got the injury. Was it the groin injury? How difficult was that from a mental perspective at that stage in your career? And how mentally strong do you have to be to overcome injury? And is there any things that you do now, looking back, in terms of your strength training, management of overs, to try and prevent and maintain that longevity in your career?
Yes, I think it was quite difficult, obviously, because I got there and it happened during a warm up actually. So I think we played the competition in South Africa. I think like straight after the final, like either the next day or like early morning, we ended up flying to India. And I think I got there a couple of days, and then obviously wasn't going to play the first game or two because, you know, we'd flown over and all of that. And it was during a warm up. I think we played against either Chennai or Mumbai Indians, and I remember like I remember it like it was yesterday. The high ball went up, like I caught the ball and I ran, and I threw it and I twisted, and I just heard like 2 pops. So I was like, oh, and then as I kind of put my right foot down, I just kind of collapsed a little bit. Went for a scan the next day. The guy was like, oh no, you'll be all right in a couple of weeks. I then flew back to South Africa. and then like I think a month or 2 months after that, actually more like 2 or 3 months after that, I had to have an operation. And then, a couple of months after that, I was kind of back playing again. But I think after that injury, I think I wasn't the same in terms, like it took me a while to kind of get back to where I kind of was, just purely because I was young. I didn't really understand a lot of things. And I think also like when you're in a professional setup, it's quite difficult to kind of keep an eye on everyone. And you can sometimes fall between the cracks, because obviously people need to focus on, the sort of squad that's in there now. But I think obviously being older now, it's a lot different. I understand what I need to do to get myself back into a certain level or certain physical state where I can perform. So if I do pick up injuries and stuff now, I'm a lot better with dealing with it, not just mentally, but I think physically as well, understanding what I need to do. And also not being afraid to ask questions, I guess. I think that's probably a thing that when you're young, you don't want to ask too many questions because, you might think that people will see it in the wrong light. But I think the best thing you can do is ask questions, because obviously when you're young, you don't have all the answers. And in terms of like the physical side of it, the mental side of it, and all of that stuff as well. Like obviously you're not an expert unless you've obviously studied in the field and you know it. But ask questions.
Yeah, with so much cricket being played now, what work are you doing in the gym? Are you almost just topping up your fitness, doing a lot of work pre-season and almost topping up? Do you do a lot of endurance training, strength work? Can you give us a little insight into your regime?
Yeah, so a lot of the sort of like, I wouldn't say like heavy lifting, but like heavy loads and stuff happens in the off season and like leading into the preseason. So it's kind of like a lot of physical stuff and a little bit of cricket in the off season. But as you get closer to the season, it kind of then overtakes, where it's more cricket and less physical stuff. So the physical stuff becomes more top up sessions. So it'd be a lot less in terms of the intensity. So you might do like 2 or 3 sessions a week, whereas like in the off season, it might be like 4 or 5 sessions, which will be either strength training or running sessions, or some sort of cardio sessions and stuff like that. And also what I've learned more, as you, again, with experience, everything gets not easier, but comes naturally, is being more specific as to what I need. Because also when you're playing in different teams, every trainer is different. So one might have this as his philosophy, and that might not work for you. And then the other one has something that kind of works for you, but maybe like some of this and some of that, you kind of merge it. So you just got to be smart. And I think you got to be, again, not afraid to ask questions, because we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. So don't be scared to tap into those weaknesses and try and get them better, because that's ultimately where you end up learning. Is you're not going to be learning when you're doing really well, because everything's going well for you. You're learning when you're not doing so well. And I think cricket's one of those games where even the best of the best have failed more than what they've succeeded. So you kind of just have to be mentally stronger with everything, really. But with the training aspect is, again, as I've gotten older, I've become smarter, knowing like, right, I haven't done much over the last 10 days. I need to probably put in a couple of sessions to kind of top it up. But again, during the season, it's cricket, because I get paid to play cricket. I don't get paid to lift heavy weights. In the off season, it's different, because you want to be, working on your weaknesses and all of that stuff.
And then 2011, you were amongst the World Cup squad for South Africa. 2012, again for the World T20. I want to focus on 2014. You come back in the test fold for the must-win game against Australia. How was that as a moment? Overcoming injury, back in the test folds. How were we feeling?
So it's always been like my test career has always been a weird one, really, because I never really saw myself as a test cricketer. Just purely based on the fact that I was quite comfortable, because I was playing 50-over cricket, I was playing T20 cricket, and at that particular time, or actually throughout, really, we've had really like, I mean, we've had for the most part of it, it was I think when I started, it was like Steyn, Morkel, Callis, and Tini, and then obviously Tini retired, and then like the three kind of stayed, and then they always added like one, and obviously Philander came in, and then you had like Kyle Abbott played. So, and I was like, you know what, if I'm not going to play Test cricket, that's fine. I'm happy playing white ball cricket, but I was always kind of like number 5 or 6 in line, you know what I'm saying? So I'd play if there's a couple of injuries, but I think from like 2016, I think, where they kind of said to me like, listen, we want you in, want you playing Test cricket, and I think that's when I kind of placed more of an emphasis on my red ball cricket. But I mean, obviously, every Test match that I've played for South Africa, you know, I've like loved it. I think my last one I played was against Bangladesh in Bloemfontein. And I don't think I did that well, but I was happy playing because I actually felt like, right, I can actually play now because I actually placed some emphasis for it, you know. But it's just one of those things. I think I just as I got older, I was kind of more honest, and I was like, you know what, it is what it is.
How difficult was it from a mental perspective? As you said, you were seen initially as this 5th or 6th option. Was that difficult to process mentally? As an athlete, you obviously want to be number 1.
Yeah, not really, because like I said, I've always been honest with myself in terms of like where I fit in and where I can add value. So I think that's helped me a lot. A lot of players don't see it that way. They're like, I should play. But actually, if you break it down, you probably like this number in the queue, as it were. So I think the first thing is like just being honest with yourself as to like, right, if I play my best cricket, I fit in here, and then just know that that's where it is. You know, like there are a lot of guys who are like really, really good first class players who've never played international cricket. It's just unfortunate. If they played it any other time, they would have played international cricket. But the guy who's playing in the national team now is averaging 50 with a bat or 25 with a ball. There's just no space for you. So, you know what I mean? So like you have to really think about it realistically. And as youngsters, it's hard because obviously, you know, for a lot of guys, their dream is to play international cricket. But what, you know, I'm like, even if I never play another international game for the rest of my career, I'm happy that I've played for South Africa more than 100 times in all formats. I mean, there are a lot of guys who I think are a lot better than me, who've played a lot less games, you know what I mean? So I can't complain and say like, oh no, you know, I should have played more. I do feel in certain parts of my career I should have played more, but at the end of the day, it doesn't all come down to me. There's a lot of different factors, you know what I mean? And there's other people picking teams as well, whether it's captain, coaches, selectors who feel that other people should be in. And at the end of the day, like, you have to be content with, you know, I've given it my best shot, and that's kind of where it's ended up.
If we can just get your coaching insight again when it comes to red ball. Now we mentioned the white ball stuff and the variations. How does it differ in the red ball game? Do you feel as that you need to be able to do something with the ball, seam it, swing it? What are your views on it?
So I think you have to be smart. Like in England, it's different to like playing back in South Africa. So in South Africa, there's a bit of bounce. It's not as much swing and seam movement. So you're bowling differently there. When you come over here, you have to bowl differently as well. So like what I found over here is you have to bowl a touch fuller. Whereas like back home, because the ball's not doing much off the surface or through the air, that becomes a like scoring option. So, you know, there you might bowl a slightly more defensive length and line, but because there's pace and bounce, you can still get wickets. Whereas like if you're bowling that length over here, it's just easy because the wickets are a lot slower in the UK. So I think it's more about just adjusting, but also just check what your teammates are doing. I mean, as a foreigner, the easiest way for you to kind of see what works is by watching the people that have grown up in these conditions. And again, I'm going to say this again, as you get older, you kind of like, right, like I should probably just watch this guy. He's been successful, yeah. So, you know, he's doing this more often than not, and he's had success. Maybe I should like try that as well. So, I think that's kind of where I wouldn't. I mean, you get smarter and you become better, but it's because you've become smarter, really. So people might be like, "Oh, this guy's become a lot better in the last, you know, couple of years," but not really. I've always had that ability. It's just now I'm just smarter because I used to think that like this was good, and yeah, it's okay, but that's better because now it's suiting, you know, the conditions and all of these other things as well.
Yeah, 2017, you mentioned the test match against Bangladesh. It's been your last outing for South Africa currently. You went and took the Kolpak deal, came over to the UK to play for Worcester. Talk us through that period in your career.
Yeah, so I think I was at the Canada Premier League, and Moeen Ali messaged me, and he was like, "Hey, listen, because I think one of the players, one of the overseas pros had to leave. I think it could have been Capital. He left for the last bit of the. Yeah, I think he had to go to CPL. And he's like, "Hey, we've got like I think it was like 8 games or something like that. Come play at Worcester." And I had 1 or 2 offers from other counties as well, and I was like, you know, I obviously know Moeen, so I was like, okay, cool, I'll, you know, come. So I ended up going, and won the Blast that year. It was the first time in Worcester's history, you know, winning it. And I think off the back of that, my son was born in that same year as well. That was 2018. And it was kind of one where I was like, you know what, I didn't say like I was done with international cricket, because it was the year before the World Cup, and I was like, you know what, I can probably be in the World Cup squad in, you know, 2019. But I kind of just realized, like, you know what, my son's going to be born. I'll have 6 months in the UK. I'll have 6 months back to South Africa. I'll be able to spend time with family. And I think, you know, post cricket, that's important, because, you know, when I'm done in whatever 5 or 6 years time, my family will hopefully still be there and be that kind of rock, you know what I mean? And I think that's the stability that I wanted more. So that was kind of the like big driving factor. Yeah, and I think it's also just about enjoying your cricket. Obviously, playing international cricket it's what every cricketer wants to do, but it's very stressful as well, because obviously there's a lot of sort of attention on it, you know. But at the end of the day, I mean, like I mentioned, I've played over 100 times for my country, and I think that's a pretty decent go. But the whole Kolpak thing just kind of came about, and I was like, you know what, it feels like it's the right time to like do it, and obviously ended up doing it.
Yeah, and then this summer, the UK summer, you're playing for Northants. What are the goals for the year for the next couple of years for yourself, from player perspective?
Yeah, I think just obviously trying to just play good cricket. I think also trying to add value to other players. You know, if I can help at least one player in every team that I go to for the rest of my career, I'll be happy. I think, again, like I feel like I have a lot to offer in terms of the experience. I mean, I've played all around the world. I've played a decent number of games as well, and I've played with and against some really good guys. And I think I've picked up a lot of things that I can, you know, try and help youngsters develop quicker. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, because you want mature heads on young bodies. So that's something that kind of really gets me excited about playing. I think the like cricket part, the batting and the bowling and stuff, that obviously takes care of itself. But just trying to add value, you know, I wouldn't say like off the field, but, you know, in and around the environment.
And then just to end on, for young cricketers watching, listening this, so one piece of advice that you would give them if they came up to you?
I think I'll just say, like, just keep it simple. Keep it really simple. Trust yourself and believe in yourself. And I think obviously working hard is something that, you know, I think there's a saying, something about working hard beats talent if talent doesn't work hard. So I think that saying is very true, because I've seen a lot of talented guys who are good and they just go to a certain point, and guys who work really hard who aren't as talented can also get to that point. But if you have a mixture of the two, there's a real recipe there for success. But I think just keep things really simple, just be clear, and obviously back yourself. I think that's the key thing with cricket these days. You really have to back yourself and focus on yourself. Don't focus on the next guy. Like, focus on yourself, because if you play into your ability and you're good enough, you'll end up where you're meant to be. So don't focus on other people.
Perfect. Wayne, thank you very much for your time today.
No worries.
Really appreciate it, and all the best for the months and years ahead. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks so much for having me.
So Neel Khagram, Cricket Love Stories, Wayne Parnell. Thank you.